Hello again from LifeSci Consulting here in London. We've been absolutely delighted with the feedback and the response that we've had to our video series, focusing on hot topics facing leaders and executives right across the life sciences industry. We're here to record another one today, which I hope you'll enjoy equally. It's on a fascinating topic which I hear about all the time when talking to clients. There's little doubt that the pandemic has created a seismic shift in the way that we think about workplace and workspace and ways of working in a professional context. Every time I talk to, whether it be CFOs or CHROs or other executives across our clients, whether they're thinking about cost or employee experience or how to bring brand into the workplace, there's always this massive focus around the built environment, office locations, how people come to work, how we operate in a hybrid working environment and agile fashions as well. And that's why today we're going to be talking about the future of work, talking about real estate, talking about the environment that we all come to work in and right across our life science client base. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Clare Bridger from Incendium Consulting and Cara Carter from Space Lab. So I guess one of the things that I'm seeing is everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got a slightly different answer, but a lot of folks, a lot of clients are still really grappling with how to solve for everything from getting people back into the workplace to collaborate, to how much space they might need, to all the different technologies that might be required to support more hybrid ways of working. I ask Claire, from your perspective, what are the big trends? What are you seeing? What are the challenges and what are the opportunities, I guess?
So many organisations want to have their own spin on what the future of hybrid working looks like, that the industry is just full of noise. And when you strip that away, what we're seeing is that utilisation in offices are still at 30-50% globally. So there's a lot of surplus space, and particularly in the life sciences industry, every pound, penny, a minute needs to be used productively to create your next life-saving drugs, and therefore a lot of business decisions are happening in isolation of real estate decisions, and that's costing millions, if not billions of pounds for big organisations. And I think that disconnect between business and real estate is causing a lot of problems. So we're really seeing the organisations that are winning in this market are the ones that are really connected as a business, and those forums that bring together all the different stakeholders from real estate, technology, sustainability, design, operations into one forum. But they're not just sitting there making stay-go decisions. They're making really strategic, intentional decisions about the future of work for their organisations.
What are you seeing in other sectors? What could be learnt from elsewhere? Where's their real innovation coming from?
When we use the word innovation, we like to think about kind of big, grand things that are happening. And 6-7 years ago, we were all talking about the beanbag test and the slide test that's happening. But it's not really about that anymore. There's a huge flight to quality over quantity now. So surplus space equals overuse of carbon. It equals kind of lack of inspiration within spaces. And I think really honing in on that intentional strategy around what does quality space look like for you and your organisation, rather than, as I said at the beginning, following these big trends and saying the whole FS sector is going to a return to office mandate. Actually, let's distill down the job activities and the roles that you do within your organisation through a detailed set of expert interviews, really getting under the skin of the activities that people do. And I think the organisations that are kind of winning in this space and the industries that are winning are those that are applying workplace science to how they think about the future. So by workplace science, I mean doing controlled experiments, isolating variables within the workplace and measuring the impact that has on cognitive ability, the impact on productivity from a scientific point of view.
I guess, Cara, now is a great time to turn to you because that science and that analysis, I guess, results in some suggestions around how people want to work. How do you then bring that to life from a design perspective? What are you seeing?
Right, so people are demanding more flexibility and autonomy in their environments, not only how they work and when they choose to work, but when they actually show up. How do they work throughout the day? Like Claire said, actually, how do I design my own day? What do I want to do? What are the tasks that I'm performing? And what are the spaces that will enable me to do better? And that means there's a whole set of spaces and environments and tools which they will need to do that effectively. And that will drive impact in how they design their spaces. So intentional spaces to collaborate and innovate with the right tools to do so. Only then are you going to get people wanting to come into the office because it's better than home. But actually, what are the other spaces that you can actually program your day to be most effective?
I think this point around quality is actually really interesting. We've got to raise the bar above what we're able to achieve in our own homes and in the spaces that we've very personally created for ourselves. I guess one of the things I'm very keen to do while I've got both of you here is get specific and give you an opportunity to share some of the things that you're seeing. If it's not beanbags anymore, Claire, what does this look like? So I'd love to sort of hear from both of you what that really means.
One of the biggest reasons to come in is for socialising, for learning from others, for innovation, and that only comes from having those real centres of energy. So how, from a design perspective, which hopefully, Cara, you can touch on in more detail than me, do you create those centres of energy? And I think one of the ways that we're talking to clients a lot about that is around having kind of unallocated spaces. So there's still a need, back to your point, in the way that we're potentially used to from our previous careers, of kind of sitting together as a team and coming and putting your coat down on the back of a chair and that's your desk for the day. There's still that kind of desire for people to have that my space, but actually there's more of a move to we space and unallocated spaces where people can design their day on their way in, or actually a week or two in advance, that they're coming in and they're going to team tables, they're booking that in advance and they're bringing people together.
I wouldn't necessarily this is a new concept or even something that's been driven by the pandemic at all, right? This is something that's been happening for the last 5 to 10 years, right? This is the shift towards agile working models, the shift towards activity-based working models has been ongoing. It's just been accelerated a little bit, in terms of, I guess it's been rolled out at scale now across lots of organisations and businesses. And there certainly is not one size fits all, to Claire's point. It's very much tailored solutions. I think we're working on recently on a FTSE 500 sort of business where they were actually looking at their global workplace strategy and actually realised that the spaces in between the desks and the spaces that kind of connect departments together were actually the most important. So we created sort of centralised collaboration zones, areas to connect, which would be digitally enabled, and then areas for concentration. So very distinct by task and activity. But the way that we positioned between desking was in so that we could attract and pull people around the space. So when you are in, you're not siloed within your own departments, but you've got movement, you're actually integrating yourselves within other departments. So you can use these things to push and pull people around the space, which then generates more of that knowledge transfer and that unplanned and unexpected interaction that you just can't get from Zoom's calls at home. So it's also, not only is it the spaces that help you sort of connect and do work well, but also, to Claire's point around social activities, it's actually giving a large proportion to those in the space and realising they're really valuable as well. Whilst sitting at your desk time is actually probably only sort of 30-40% of your day, actually those social interactions that aren't necessarily have to be within a meeting room can actually really improve company culture as well.
One of the things that comes to mind for me is, unsurprisingly, I guess for our audience, the cost side of things. And I can understand how better use of space, less space, is a positive. Is this a very costly exercise to start to engage in? Should organisations, I guess, be expecting to spend more on this than they have traditionally in the past in order to be able to create these environments?
I will think that actually investment does need to happen to really capitalise on future of work and do it effectively. But actually that doesn't mean in the long term it's going to cost. Make the changes now, invest in it now, but actually set yourself up for success and set yourselves up for the future. Typically that's what I would sort of generally recommend to our clients. But actually if you don't do anything, what is the cost of not doing anything? And what is the cost of losing staff, of not retaining talent, of actually your workforce's resilience and happiness as well? And that has a huge impact on the culture that you want to breed, particularly with a predominantly remote workforce. When they do come in, they want to really get a sense of the brand, of the sense of the company, and a sense that they're part of something, and that's how you get that loyalty from your employee base.
Claire, I can sense you've got a few things to add on the cost front as well too. Any thoughts?
This is going back to my original point, this flight to quality over quantity. So if you can make that behaviour change, that you're using the workplace in an intentional way to do more of your collaboration, more of your kind of touchdown activities, using it as a base to go off to meetings and come back, that behaviour change then enables you to reduce the amount of space because you're moving towards activity-based working concept. You're not on a one-to-one desk ratio, which surprisingly a lot of organisations are still there. Yeah. So yes, it does require the capital investment up front, and to Cara's point, that you're saving yourself a huge amount from kind of recruitment costs and longevity of employees, their employees' well-being, employee productivity. But the investment to get that right is really key. And it's really difficult in this market when there's such a focus on cost. How do you put aside that employee experience budget? Because really that's what it's about. It's being able to ring fence that budget when we're in a period where everyone's so cost focused.
I think one of the things that I really like around what you're advocating in terms of taking a deliberate approach to this is, and perhaps the two of you have seen similar, I'd be interested to hear, I've seen a lot of chopping and changing, and actually a real lack of strategy, a lack of intent around the way these things are being approached. So we need to refit in order to make it more suitable, or we quickly need to reduce space and therefore we're going to pay to get out of leases and all of this sort of thing. Is there some observations from your side? Are you seeing similar across your client base as well, and are there ways to tackle that?
I think it's down to the metrics that are set, and I think there's so many historic metrics around real estate that are still being used that are driving the wrong behaviours. So let's take the example of cost per square foot, compare that to experience per square foot. Yeah. Cost per head, cost per attended head. Yeah. When you look at a cost per attended head, it's, that really brings to life how much is being wasted on people that are not there.
I think that's a great point there around, there are people who've clearly decided they're going to be attending the office. They are the audience that we effectively have for the environment that we're creating. I guess, Cara, every time someone attends a workplace, it's an opportunity to re-energise them on company brand, value, culture, those sorts of things. What are your thoughts on how you do that, the opportunities that are created through that attendance, and how physical space can be used to sort of reinforce those topics?
The closer you can get employees to your company core business and purpose, the better. So actually that's how you drive a lot of your employee loyalty, but actually an authentic culture as well. So if people can get behind the business, what they're about, then actually that often drives the culture naturally and organically. How you do that in physical space is quite complex, but also very tailored to every company, obviously. So there are examples where we are seeing clients, particularly like fashion brands, who are now moving, the likes of ASOS and Ted Baker are moving all their studio production and photography in-house, just so they can drive efficiencies, but also they can get closer to the product. People feel invested into the brand, they see it, there's visibility. Actually, they want to come in to see that buzz and see that energy and actually enjoy that sort of exposure to what the core business is doing.
A couple of great life science examples that I've seen recently has jogged my memory on. There's clients of mine in Switzerland who's actually got some manufacturing that they've inserted into a couple of their office floors, and I was walking around with a chap the other day who was from finance but the enthusiasm and the passion and the pride effectively in knowing what was being manufactured in there was massive. And other clients would have inserted lab space into the middle of office space. You can actually see the science taking place. Leveraging perhaps some of your experience in other industries, if I was a leader of a biotech company who was starting to scale and grow and think about space to put people in, what are the sorts of things you're seeing out there which could be interesting? Whether they be sort of flexible arrangements, what should I be thinking about?
Startup businesses are more and more making use of co-working space, flexible workspace, that they don't have to, that they can flex up and down to suit that market. So taking shorter leases to experiment, test out how they're using space and then expanding. So we're seeing organisations, even if they're taking a lease space, taking it within a building that maybe has some overflow flex space that they can then scale up and down into. There's also an incredible amount of investment into the life sciences industry at the moment from in and around the Oxford, Cambridge, London from a UK perspective. Similar happening in pockets in the US as well, where the kind of investment is going into kind of speculative spaces rather than those bespoke spaces for organisations where they have to start thinking 2 years out. There's a lot more kind of flexible space that can be utilised as part of a growing business, and you're not taking on that whole capital investment up front.
So are you seeing landlords being more flexible and open to shorter leases, a little bit more experimentation around how space is configured? Is there more power in the hands of tenants these days?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely more power in the hands of tenants because there is that surplus space, but there's also more landlords, because you've got your traditional landlords, you've got your operators, and you've got occupiers who are kind of trying to get rid of surplus space, and then they might become a de facto landlord. So I think the power is in the tenant's hands to have those negotiations and to spend a bit of time just really categorising their portfolio, which we often help them with, because it's really around which parts of your portfolio or non-existent portfolio, part of the business you might be growing, can you make use of more flexible space. And it might be a higher cost per square foot to start with, but at long term you're really reducing that upfront capex spend. So it's a really great way to start an organisation in a flexible way.
What are you seeing, Cara?
Flexibility is obviously a key word. I think also having a little bit of foresight in terms of where you think you're going. I think if you understand your growth plans and your aspirations within that, have that in your mind and actually know that you're designing a space that can grow to that as well. So it's understanding, for me, it's understanding the future and then knowing that you only need to deliver some of it now. And then, but how are you going to grow within the space that you have? And actually, what's the strategy if you exceed that? It's a brilliant problem to have, but actually have that backup plan.
I think one of the threads I'm picking up on from both of you is really around intent, intention, being very, very clear around where you're going, what you want to achieve, and then chunking that up and taking the steps, and experimenting a little bit with what's going to work, bringing some science to bear on how people react to the physical spaces we create for them, and observing, I guess, and adjusting as you go along too. If you were advising a life sciences executive who was thinking about return to work, future of work, workplace, workspace, all of those sorts of things, what are the sort of your 3 top tips?
Have a strategy, understand what that is. Business case first, workplace second. It's almost like understand where your business is going, wrap your space around that. Invest in the pieces you know you can take with you, or you know that won't necessarily change, and then actually then build upon it.
One of the things we really focused on here at Lifesci Consulting is real sleeves rolled up, sort of pragmatic, practical advice, and that's some really good points from you there, Cara. Claire, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go back to it being about being intentional with your strategy. So you must be intentional with what you're doing from a real estate perspective. It's about being responsible. So that's from a sustainability perspective, a well-being perspective, and a responsibility to your people. So keeping that human-centered design at the center of every decision you make. And finally, building agility into everything that you do. So to Cara's point earlier, it's about, behavior change is much harder than physical change. So if you can get the behaviours right from the start, and then you can scale up and down your physical real estate to suit, then you're going to be a winner.
Claire, Cara, thank you so much. The great thing about this for me is it's been massively insightful. I've learned a huge amount, and hopefully our audience has too. Thank you for joining us again today from Lifesci Consulting here in London. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion with Clare Bridger and Cara Carter from Incendium Consulting and Space Lab respectively. It's a massive topic facing our industry and many other industries at the moment, and I hope there's been some practical and pragmatic tips, suggestions and experiences that we've been able to bring to life for you. Thanks for tuning in.